Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So I'd like to thank Mother for giving me the opportunity to purify myself through this wonderful verse that we are going to cover today, which is the second mantra from Sri Isha Upanishad. So we will start as we usually do with the invocation mantra. So I know most of you or all of you will be on mute, but you can chant in your homes. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalita Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Mena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kathamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yudapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sakitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakantitamscha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschata Dasatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripata Mahamante Shri Gurum Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayata Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvize Namaha Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanetaya Jagaditaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasiti Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Into the verse number 2 or mantra number 2 of this Isha Upanishad, we would first look at the forest and then go into the specific tree that we are looking at, which is the Kalpavriksha tree. But we look at the forest. Hopefully, this was already covered to an extent before the first session that you had on Isha Upanishad. But I think we can calibrate all of us and get some overview of the Vedic scriptures before we get into the Isha Upanishad, if that's okay. So, as we know, if I use the word Hinduism, so that everybody understands. So Hinduism, we just don't have one scripture. It's not like Quran or Bible. It's not like one book that we have. So we know that we have multiple scriptures. So we have the Vedas, the four Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharvana Veda, and the Vedic scriptures, what we call as Vedic scriptures. So if you divide that into two, so we have the Shruti. Shruti means that which is heard, which is the revealed truth. And Vedas are part of that. Upavedas are like Ayurveda. Ayurveda is for the medicinal part of it. Gandharva Veda is about song and dance, and Dhanurveda is about warfare, and Shilpa Veda is the Shilpa Shastra, so which is how to make the deities the best, the perfect way, etc. And we have this Upanishad. Then Isha Upanishad that we are covering today is part of the Upanishad. So it is also referred to as Vedanta, like the famous Bhagavad-Gita verse 8.5, Anta Kaleja, right? Anta means end. So Vedanta means the end of the Vedas, or you can say the conclusion of the Vedas, and also the Vedanta Sutras are the aphorisms, that one line that is there, and the explanation or description of that is given through Srimad Bhagavatam, as we know. And the other part of the Vedic scripture is Smriti, that, they are written according to the Shruti, according to the Vedic scriptures, according to the Upanishads, etc. And that is the realized truth. And under that comes the Itihasas, like our histories like Ramayana, Mahabharata, and all the Puranas as well. And Manusmriti is also part of it. So mainly two different divisions. One is Shruti and Smriti. And what we are covering and what you already covered with Invocation Mantra and first mantra of this Isha Upanishad is part of the Shruti. That means that which is heard. And we'll see what is the meaning of the word Upanishads as well. So Vedas, as we know, is the sound incarnation of Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is presented in the form of sound. So knowledge that is presented in the form of sound is the Vedas. And we have many Vedic suktas. Collection of suktas is called a Samhita. and we'll get to that in a minute. But suktas are collection of verses or rigs. For example, you have Purusha Sukta, you have Narayana Sukta, you have Vishnu Sukta, you have Shri Suktam. In all the four Vedas, right? So you have many of these suktams attached to Rig Veda, which is contains 1028 suktas, and then many of them are again found from Rig Veda in the other Vedas, like Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda as well. So Vedas were originally transmitted by Lord Krishna to Lord Brahma. So again, we want to get this introduction right so that we understand the importance of the Upanishad that we are reading, because as far as I know, Prabhupada has translated only one Upanishad, which is Isha Upanishad, and there is a significant reason why he's done that, because it talks more of personal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead more than any other Upanishad, because generally Upanishads talk about Brahman, the bodily effulgence of the Lord, and not the personalized form of the Lord, but not this Upanishad. So as we know from Srimad Bhagavatam, the very, very first verse, right? So 1.1.1, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavye. So Adi Kavye. So here it is said that Lord Krishna is the one who imparted the Vedic knowledge into the heart of Lord Brahma, the original or the first living entity who appeared from the stem of the lotus. And also I took some references from Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam about the significance of Vedas that Lord Krishna is teaching us, right? So he says twice in Bhagavad-Gita, about the Vedas, right? Of the Vedas, is Samaveda because of the beautiful melodies. And within Samaveda is Brihad Sama, a type of a particular set of suktas that are there. And also in the 11th canto, the 16th chapter, if you remember, that's where Lord Krishna repeats many of the Bhagavad Gita verses. So 11.16 is where many things are repeated as he narrated to Arjuna. He's repeating that in a way to Uddhava. So in that, the 23rd verse, he talks about among sacrifices and the study of the Veda. And then in the 3rd canto and in the 1st canto, there's more elaboration or more description where the Samaveda is nothing but the flapping of the wings of the carrier of Lord Vishnu, which is Garuda. And we also know from the 1st canto that the 17th incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is Vyasadeva, who's non-different from Lord Krishna. So he divided this one Veda at that time into 4 branches, as well as he penned down other, Puranas and Mahabharata, etc. And it is considered, the Puranas are considered as the 5th Veda. So 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda. And then the 5th Vedas are supposed to be the Puranas, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit amongst all of the Puranas. And then we know how Srimad Bhagavatam came into place after the Puranas were written, and then he was still not happy. And then, on the personal aspects of the Lord, all the pastimes of the Lord that we read from, especially from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So just a little bit of a history. And then we read from Srimad Bhagavatam 1st canto how the Vedas, after it was divided into 4, it was actually the power of attorney, or it was delegated to different sages, great sages like Paila Rishi, Jaimini Rishi, etc., so that they are all the authorities in each one of those Vedas, and then they propagated the contents of these individual Vedas to everyone else as well. And the Romaharshan, as we read from Srimad Bhagavatam, he was interested with the Purana. So this is there in Srimad Bhagavatam 1st canto. So it's most of you will know this. So within each one of those Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda, it is further divided into Samhita, Aranyaka, and Brahmanas, right? And Upanishad. So those are the 4 divisions of each one of those 4 Vedas. So Samhita means nothing but the mantras, right? So most of the Vedic mantras are part of the Samhita. And then Aranyaka, we have some rituals in that. So when we do a fire sacrifice, we take a lot of these mantras from Aranyakas. Aranyaka means what was described to a student or a disciple in a forest. And Brahmanas are commentaries on the rituals from the Aranyaka and in Samhita as well. But what we are interested in today is Upanishad, Isha Upanishad. So Upanishad means it's also considered to be the head of the Vedas, and it's also considered to be the final conclusion of the Vedas. So which is Vedanta, right? Vedanta means conclusion or the end of the Vedas. And it is supposed to be a Rahasya Vidya. It's very confidential, secret spiritual knowledge. And there are many meanings for this Upanishad when we read through the scriptures as well. So sitting down near, typically a student sits next to his guru, and then he learns that.
One
and
second,
that is
मेरी class है, half an hour बाद बात करेंगे.
And then it also brings the person close to the Supreme Personality of God. So Upanishad means it brings, when the contents of the Upanishads are read and understood and then executed, then it brings the person close to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But how does he get to know that? Sitting next to the teacher. Typically, that's how the contents of Upanishads or Shruti was transmitted. And then another meaning is it shatters and destroys the fetters of ignorance, like chains of ignorance that we are all chained in life after life. With the knowledge of Upanishad, that is destroyed. So Vedanta is a final conclusion of the Vedic teachings, as well as it's the wisdom portion of or the Jnana Kanda, right? So in Vedas, we have the Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. So nothing bad about any part, because it's all coming from Lord Krishna, as we read from 1.1.1. So Karma Kanda is the sacrifices and rituals that are prescribed for us, and we'll see that in this verse number 2 as well, which is important. So the Jnana Kanda part of the Vedas is the Upanishads, and that's the Upanishad that we are going to read, especially the second verse of that. So who benefits from the Vedas as well as from the Vedic scriptures or the other parts of Shruti like Upanishad? So it is said that it's a gift of God for welfare of the entire humanity, right? So we've heard, women cannot hear Vedic verses, etc. So then it was all debunked, and most of the Vedic verses are now chanted by Matajis and women across the universe, not just I would say across the world, that we know of, because you see the recordings of all these wonderful Manyu Sukta and other Sukta. It's all chanted by Matajis very beautifully, wonderfully, with all the intonations, etc. It's supposed to be the breath of the Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just like God is present everywhere, Vedic sound vibrations are present everywhere, but we cannot access it. But fortunately, these great sages, because it's come from Krishna to Brahma, and then it was entrusted to these 4 rishis, it's also in the ether. And just like, I can hear, or you can hear me speaking now in your homes, but you cannot hear the ant walking in your room, right? So we have the capacity to hear from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, right? But nothing below or nothing beyond that. But these great sages, they use this sort of like a pen drive to extract this Vedic chant, and then they have actually put that in writing at the beginning of or at the end of Dwapara Yuga. And that's how we have the Vedic scriptures as well as Shrutis as well. Just like law of gravitation was discovered by Isaac Newton. So he's from United Kingdom, right? So it doesn't mean that law of gravitation is applicable only in United Kingdom and nowhere else. As you know, if you throw something, it'll go down, right? It'll fall down. So law of gravitation is applicable universally. So similarly, Vedas, even though it's prominently found in India, used in India, read in India, memorized in India, it's applicable. The benefits are applicable to everyone in the world. So it is said that it's belong to those who value them, and it is absolutely beneficial when we practice that. So today is a great opportunity for us to dive deep into Upanishad, one of the Upanishad, especially the second verse. And it is said this Vedas are like the wish-fulfilling tree, like the Kalpa Vriksha tree. But if you have a tree at home in your backyard or in your front yard, for the tree or plant to grow, you need to water it, you need to put the fence, you need to put fertilizer. And it is said for us to obtain the results of Vedic teachings, then we need to water it, which is constant practice, recitation, and the attention, as well as we need to have that discipline, which is the fence. And then the fertilizer is the daily spiritual practice that is needed as well. So I just wanted to put one person here. So this is Max Muller. He's from Germany. And the reason I put is we all came to know he died in the year 1900, but the Vedas were sort of excavated and translated in English language by this person. So you can read some information about him in the internet. He's one of the pioneers that brought together the translation of the Vedic text, because it's very difficult. In many times, even his translation, there's no literal meaning for these words, right? So you have to provide contextual meaning, taking into account other Shrutis. That means other Vedic scriptures, other Upanishads, etc. So it's much difficult than what we read in Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas. So Vedic Sanskrit is different, and it's difficult, and the pronunciation is also with the intonation. Savasra Shirisham Devam, like it goes up and down. Vishwaksham Vishwasambhuvam, like that, right? So you would have heard the Vedic scriptures. So what he's trying to say here is, modern words, the English words are like round, but ancient Sanskrit words are in a square, right? So we may as well hope to solve this quadrature of the circle, to fill that, but it's not very easy, right? So that's why there's no literal translation of the Vedic mantras and even this Upanishad, right? So that's why Prabhupada has given this wonderful translation for us to understand it, because even when people know Sanskrit very well, if they try to translate it, it may not make much sense. So you have to provide that contextual meaning. It's not a perfect explanation or translation of these words. So we need the commentary. Typically, that's the advantage that we have with Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-Gita, etc. Fantastic, fabulous commentaries are there by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And we're fortunate that for Isha Upanishad as well, we have wonderful commentary, so we can benefit from Srila Prabhupada's commentary, where he's gathered it from so many other scriptures as well. So you would have heard this term, right? A square peg in a round hole means someone who does not fit in a particular place or situation. So that's what this great professor is saying as to how difficult it is to translate the Vedic text in order to provide that meaning that we can understand and make use of, right? So, Swami Vivekananda, actually, he had met this great person, Max Muller. So all the translation, especially Rig Veda translation, is the ultimate person that is given initially, that was given to us, is this Max Muller. And he said, he calls this Max Muller a silver-haired sage with a face calm and benign and forehead smooth as a child's, in spite of 70 winters. Beautifully saying, he's 70 years of age at that time when he met him. In spite of 70 winters, and every line in that face speaking of deep-seated mine of spirituality somewhere behind. So he's a great personality, and he's glorifying the Vedic scriptures, and he's also provided so much of commentary and comments on this Isha Upanishad as well. So just some contextual background there. So getting into this Isha Upanishad, so as we heard, there is this Vedas, and then we have the four Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and Atharva Veda. And then there are over 1,000 Upanishads, out of which 108 are prominent. Out of 108, it is a 10 are very prominent. And this wonderful picture gives us the background of the Isha Upanishad that we are dealing with, right? So within the Vedas, you have Yajur Veda, and within Yajur Veda, you have Krishna Yajur Veda and Shukla Yajur Veda, which Krishna Yajur Veda is, it's not in a sequential order, but Shukla Yajur Veda, the verses are compiled in a very systematic, sequential manner. And within the Shukla Yajur Veda, we have Isha Upanishad. So that's what we are reading today. So this gives you the nice forest, and then the Isha Upanishad is actually the tree, and within the tree we'll pluck the mantra number 2 that we are going to read today. Okay, busy slide, don't worry, we're not going to go through this, but again, this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela. If you're interested in what are these 108 Upanishads, yeah, you would have heard periodically what are the Upanishads. You may have heard of some of these Upanishads, Chandogya Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, etc. So the 108 Upanishads are there, and you can see which one is referred to there as the first Upanishad, right? So which is the Isha Upanishad. So again, to provide you with the context of how important is this Upanishad from all angles before we get into this verse number 2. So this Upanishad is called as Isha Vashiya Upanishad because the first word, the first verse starts with the word Isha Vashiya. So that's how it gets the name, right? And it's further shortened, as you can see. Sometimes it's referred to as Isha Upanishad or Isha Upanishad. I just gave an example, right? famous cricketer that many of you would have followed, Sachin Tendulkar. Very few people refer to him as Sachin Tendulkar. They'll call him as Sachin or Sach is back. So similarly, this Upanishad, the Isha Vashiya Upanishad, is also shortened to that Isha Upanishad or Isha Vashiya Upanishad. It belongs to Shukla Yajurveda, as we saw in the previous slide. So certain things I will repeat deliberately in the presentation, because you would have heard from me, repetition causes retention, because you may not go back to these things for a long period of time. So when we reiterate certain things more often, then it'll stick in our mind. So Isha Upanishad belongs to Shukla Yajurveda. Out of the 4 Vedas, Yajurveda is divided into Krishna Yajurveda and Shukla Yajurveda, and this belongs to Shukla Yajurveda. And Isha Upanishad, the relatively small Upanishad, right? So it contains only 18 mantras plus the Invocation Mantra. We'll talk about that in a minute. This is pretty interesting. I'm going to get one of you to unmute yourself and read this so that we get more involvement here. So it's a very interesting paragraph here. So can maybe Mother Mokshalila unmute yourself and read this if you can?
Yes, Prabhuji. Srimad Bhagavatam 8.1.9 to 16. 8 verses is condensed form of mantra from Isopanishad. After Swayambhuva Manu had thus entered the forest with his wife Akuti, he stood on one leg on the bank of river Sunanda, and in this way, with only one leg touching the earth, he performed great austerities for 100 years. He chanted these prayers by the mantras of Sri Isopanishad. Swayambhuva Manu praised Lord Yagya, an incarnation of Vishnu, who was the son of Manu's daughter Akuti. When chanting the Isopanishad mantras, fierce Rakshasas approached him, desiring to eat him. Lord Yagna then killed the Rakshasas and saved Manu.
Wonderful, thank you. So, in one way, you would have heard about 97.3 FM, right? 98.1, 104.5 Chum FM. In material world, we call it as WIIFM, right? What does that mean? What's in it for me? WIIFM. What's in it for me? Manager says, "Oh, I want you to get this done in 1 week's time. It's a very difficult job, but I want." Okay, manager, I'll do it. What's in it for me? Giving me promotion, giving me pay rise, right? Typically, that's what we should not be doing in this verse, by the way. But it's typical. What's in it for me? So in this case, what's in it for anybody? If you think, what is Isha Upanishad? What does it do? Here's a good example, practical example from Srimad Bhagavatam, that Swayambhuva Manu himself chanted the mantras of Isha Upanishad. So when you read this 8.1, Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 8, first chapter, verses 9 to 16, it's actually the condensed version of this 18 Isha Upanishad mantras. So it is said that he got saved from being killed by these Rakshasas because, being saved by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as well. Swayambhuva Manu. I'm just digressing here a little bit, but hopefully you'll find it useful. So Swayambhuva Manu, his wife is Satarupa, and he had 2 sons and 3 daughters. And then, some description is there. Priyavrata, he married so-and-so, and he got 10 sons and 1 daughter. And then Uttanapada, we all know who's Uttanapada, and he married Suniti, and then Dhruva was the son and married Surichi, and then begot Uttama. All described beautifully in the, anybody, which canto? Dhruva Maharaj pastime? I'm going to show 4th canto. Okay, and then the daughter Akuti. So here we are talking about Akuti, and she married the sage Ruchi, and then their son was Yajnamurti. Sorry about the spelling there, Their. Son was Yajnamurti, and then the daughter, another daughter is Devahuti. Who's Devahuti? We've never heard about Devahuti, right? Especially the son of Devahuti. Who's that? Kapila, right? So 3rd canto full of Kapila Muni's teachings are there. And then Prasuti is the younger sister. And then she married Daksha, and they had 16 daughters. And the youngest was Sati, who married Lord Shiva. And we know the great pastime, and again in the 4th canto with Daksha insulting, and you know that pastime. So again, I put this slide so that you get to know the context of what Mother read in the previous slide. by chanting the verses of Isha Upanishad in a condensed form, which is there in Srimad Bhagavatam 8th canto, 1st chapter, Yagyamurti, who's Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu, protected Swayambhuva Manu from the fierce Rakshasas, right? So this is a, it takes hours to put together this. You'll not see it anywhere. So if you'd like to take a picture of it, please do so. It'll help you understand the bigger picture of, how things work. So it's not from a website or something, but it'll be useful for you to know how the relationship works. So this is a little bit from the 1st canto and then more from 3rd and the 4th canto as well. Okay. So here, Isha Upanishad at a glance before we get into the 2nd mantra. So we have the 18 mantras that are on the right-hand side, and it's also by our acharyas. Typically, they group it into 5 main buckets, 5 main groups, right? Living in harmony with God. And that's where we are, because verse number 2 is part of living in harmony with God. So what you covered in the first class of this Upanishad first mantra is absolutely accepting only your quota. And then today we'll cover living in the spirit of Isha Vashiya. That means engulfed in the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm not getting into the details because this is just to give you an aerial view of how Isha Upanishad is set up. Put it into these 5 groupings, and then the 18 mantras are part of that. So Vidya and Avidya means knowledge and ignorance, and then Sambhuti and Asambhuti refers to Supreme Personality of Godhead, and also refers to those who have no independent existence. So it'll be covered later on by some devotees, but this will give you a good glimpse of how the real estate of this Isha Upanishad is set up. Okay. Again, I'm not getting into all the details, but I put it here for you. If you're a speed reader, you can read it. But basically, I would like to stick to the first paragraph. So if somebody can read the first paragraph, because it'll remind us of what you had already covered in the invocation and verse number 1. So if we can get one more devotee to unmute yourself and read just the first paragraph under the heading of living in harmony with Isha.
Living in harmony with Isha. The Supreme Lord Isha is perfect and complete, and unlimited complete units emanate from him. Invocation. Knowing that he is the supreme proprietor, one should accept only the quota allotted to oneself and not encroach upon others' wealth. 1. If one lives in the spirit of Isha Vasya with detachment, one can avoid material bondage. 2. But if one lives in materialistic life of sense enjoyment, one is to be considered a soul killer, destined for the dark and demonic planets.
3. So which we'll be covering later on, but all these 3 verses with the invocation falls under this. It can be put under this topic of or heading of living in harmony with Isha, and then you'll cover the rest of them, but it's a nice little summary as well. So now what you heard earlier about Swayambhuva Manu being saved by chanting this mantra. So, so this is just a repetition of that. But basically, what I want you to know is this verse 8.1.10. So because I'm referring to 8.1.9 to 16. So if you can get one more person, if you're comfortable to read the Sanskrit, a transliteration as well as the translation, so that will tell you that there is this direct correlation with mantra number 1. Right, Isha Upanishad that you had already covered. So can we get one more devotee to read 8.1.0, either the transliteration with the English translation or just the English translation? Either one of them is good. Atma Vasyam Idam Vishwam. Come on, anyone?
Srimad Bhagavatam 8.1.10. Atmavasyam idam vishyam yad kinjit jagatyam jagattena tyaktena bhujintaha magridha kasya svidhanam. Within this universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his super soul feature is present everywhere. Wherever there are animate or inanimate beings, therefore one should accept only that which is allotted to him. One should not desire to infringe upon the property of others.
Does it ring a bell? And does that directly connect you with the first mantra?
Yes.
So these are all hidden gems, right? So that's our understanding too, right? Like when we are reading, if you're able to correlate and connect, then we'll know the connectedness between the scriptures as well. So it's a beautiful connection between the Upanishad and the Puranas, as you can see here, right? So please take your time later on to read from 8.1.9 to 16, beautiful verses. So just to get us into this mood of what he had already covered, the invocation mantra. So the invocation mantra, just for your information, because if some of you are involved in performing fire sacrifices, we always chant the Pancha Shanti. Pancha Shanti is the Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. You know, you would have heard that during regular recitation as well as during fire sacrifice. So Shanti, 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 Adhyatmika miseries, Adhibhautika miseries, Adhidevika miseries will be destroyed when you say. So you're getting into the mood of learning from your guru when you chant the Pancha Shanti, Shanti Path, or even before your worship of the deity, your mind becomes calm, right? So you're creating the proper atmosphere of purity and serenity. So your mind is not sort of going all over the place. So your distracted mind, your agitated mind is nicely brought inwards from all the external world affairs, right? So you have the Shanti mantra, which are different in different Upanishads, right? Sukla Yajurveda, which is Purnamada, which is what you would have covered. And then we also have in the Krishna Yajurveda, you have Om Shahana Bhavatu, Shahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryan Karavavahe, Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvisavahai, and then Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So you have also Rig Veda Shanti mantra for those Upanishads, as well as Atharva Veda also. So for those of you who've been to the Char Dham, when you go there and you engage some of the priests to do some puja for you, because when you go to Holy Dham, you want to, do all these spiritual activities when you go there to Badrinath, Kedarnath, and all those, Yamunotri, Gangotri, etc. So when you go there, it's just startling. Everybody chants this mantra several times. What you see is Atharvana or Atharva, both are same. Atharvana mantras, Upanishads, Shanti mantra. Om Bhadram Karne Vishunyama Deva Bhadram Pashe Makshabir Yajatraha Sthirairange Stustuvagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Deva Itam Yatayuhu Om Swastino Indro Vridashrava Swastino Pusha Vishvaveda Swastino Tharakshyo Arishtenemi Swastino Brihaspati Tatatu Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So different Upanishad will have different Shanti mantras so that everybody gets into that particular mood to hear the contents of the Upanishad, right? So in that context, this is a beautiful invocation mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. So it's just like the verse that we just read from Srimad Bhagavatam, this is exactly the same, right? Like everything belongs to the Lord, and also the next verse is direct correlation with the verse that you just read. So here, indicates that he's full of 6 opulences, right? Wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. The whole of Srimad Bhagavatam, especially 10th canto, all cantos, right? We talk about not just Krishna, your Matsya Avatar. Matsya Avatar is in canto 8. The chapter is 24. The last chapter in 8th canto, we talk about 8.1, where these mantras are there. But 8.24 is the last chapter in the 8th canto after the Vamanadev pastime. That's the Matsya Avatar pastime, right? So, in that particular pastime, you can see every pastime, it shows the wealth, strength. In this case, it's strength, right? How he's pulling that, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. So all the incarnations of the Lord are full of these 6 opulences: wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, right? So that's the invocation mantra that you already covered. And then the first verse is Isha Vashyamidam Sarvam Yatkincha Jagat Yam Jagat. That particular verse. So what we should be doing is not quarrel over material possessions. So I saw some fight, right? Not far from my house. It's all semi-detached houses, and they were all fighting for that little grass. It's probably about 4 feet in length for 10 feet, right? There is this half of 2 feet belongs to this person too. Oh my God, it's like unbelievable fight that person took an inch away from this person and things like that. I understand, money is involved, etc. But that's exactly what it says. Do not quarrel over this material possession. One must be satisfied with whatever privileges are given to him by the mercy of the Lord, right? So you have got the right to enjoy what is allotted to you, but don't encroach upon others' right? And that by itself is a renunciation. You look at it, always look like the grass is greener in the neighbor's house, right? But it is not. So just be happy with what we have. That's what it says. So basically, this mantra one says Isha Vashiya principle. That means God-centered or God-covered conception, right? So in Bhagavad-Gita, as we see, 9th canto, 9th chapter, 10th chapter, we also have 15th chapter, where Lord Krishna talks about how He's the sun, he's the moon. When you look around, taste of water, smell of this, earth, and strength of the man, etc. So everywhere we look around is, Lord Krishna's presence is there, right? So that's the God-centered activity that we are asked to perform in this verse number 2. You'll get that in a minute. And then Isha means Lord, as we know, and more personalized name. If you remember a few minutes ago, I mentioned most of the Upanishads talk about Brahman, right? So we talk about Brahman, then Paramatma, and then this individual personality, supreme personality of Godhead, right? But this Brahman is one which is described in all the Upanishads, right? And Srila Prabhupada explained that's the bodily effulgence of the Lord. So it's like watching a train coming from a distant, a village boy is seeing, he's been taken to a railway station for the very first time. He's seeing a distant train from so far away. And then he sees the light and he runs back to his house 10 kilometers away. Yes, I saw. The train means it's a light, right? So that's the Brahman. But then there's another boy, village boy, who's never seen the train. He was standing and then he came and then he saw all this engine and the, thing coming and the carriages coming. Then he said, oh yeah, this train means there is this, engine and this carriages. And then he ran away. That's like the Paramatma. But the third person was waiting, and then he saw who was actually driving the train. There's the driver, etc. Right? So that's an example that our acharyas give as well. So Brahman is what is prominently described in the Upanishad. So, but this Upanishad that talks more of the personal feature of the Lord than what is usually referred in the Upanishad. So with that, we will jump into mantra number 2. So I hope I didn't take too long to set us up nicely to know the importance of this Isha Upanishad and how it fits into this realm of Vedas, and how 4 Vedas are there, and how this is part of Yajur Veda and 18 mantras. And then here we are, after refreshing ourselves with Veda, with verse invocation as well as mantra 1, we're jumping into mantra 2. But we also found out that there are similar mantras, in Srimad Bhagavatam 8th canto, 1st chapter as well. So I would like to get a volunteer to read this, not the synonyms, but the transliteration and the translation, please.
We may start from mantra.
Yes.
Kurvan neveha karmani jijivishe
Chatam sama
evam tvai nanyathe tosti na karma lipyate nare.
Very good. Translation.
Kurvan, doing continuously. Iva, thus. Iha, during this span of life. Karmani, work. Jijivished, one should desire to live. Satam, 100 sama years. Evam, so living. Tvai, unto you. Na, no. Nanyatha, alternative. Ita, from this path. Asti, there is. Na, not. Karma, work. Lipyate, can be bound. Nare, unto a man. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way. For that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man.
Thank you. Very well read. So here, what we need to understand is, if he goes on working in that way means the way that is given in mantra 1. Okay. So and if you see this verse, the word karma is referred twice. One as karmani, which is work, and then later on towards the end, in the last 4th line of the transliteration, it again talks about karma. So we'll talk about what is karma, vikarma, karma, etc., because those are all importantly connected with this particular verse. So put a little bit of summary here. So if one should desire, so the translation says one may aspire. So another way to look at it is, if one desires to live in this world 100 years, right? So typically that's like a benchmark of maximum number of years that the people may live to, but hardly anybody lives that long. 80 is typical, but with a lot of COVID and other things, we don't know when our end will come. But in this verse, it says shatam. Shatam means, even during marriages, you will hear the priest talk about shatam, 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 100 years, 100 years. And this is typically reverberating through the Vedic scriptures, right? Because that's the standard in this Kali Yuga for us. So if one should desire to live in this world for 100 years, one should live performing karma. Karma means karma yoga we're talking about, right? Which are the righteous deeds based on the scriptures. Because there's no other way. Because other ways will trap us into this law of karma and will deteriorate and will be bound to this birth and death in this material world. That's the conclusion of this particular verse, right? So mantra 1, which we read, reveals our practice of accepting only our quota and engaging in Lord's service. That is 1. But mantra 2, what we are reading today, reveals the reward of such practice. So if you follow mantra 1 and still work in your bank, work as an engineer, doesn't matter, in God consciousness, which is the Isha Vashiya principle, then there is nothing to bind us. Okay, so pretty much these two mantras are the context of this whole Upanishad, and the remaining mantras, 16 mantras, are all expansion or explanation of these two slokas. So if all we have to replace is, be focused. It's not like we are rejecting the world. We cannot, because you have a wife, you have husband, you have children, you have work, you have mortgage to take care of, etc. Right? So it's not like we are rejecting the world. We are defocusing sort of and focusing more, right? So when you focus, you can only focus on one thing, right? So other things become defocused, right? So here the expectation is, focus on God and do your activities. Like Krishna's teaching Arjuna 8.6? Yeah. 8.6, where he's saying, continue to think of me and do your duty, right? So defocus on the world and focus on the Lord, Ishvara. And then if we perform the actions blindly clinging to our lower desires, then we are trapped in this cycle of birth and death. But the same actions, when we are performing based on surrender to the Lord, thinking of the Lord, then we are purified and liberated, right? So there's no, we are unentangled from this worldly matter. That's what is the crux of what we are reading from Bhagavad-Gita again and again. So it's closely connected, and you see the verses that I've attached here. So there's no harm in being being materially good as well, right? So the example that was given in the purport is also, nationalism, etc. But if we are connecting that to Lord Krishna in the spiritual way, then even those good activities will bring us the benefit, right? So if it's detached, I'm giving you a donation for the hospital, but you put my name, I want this ward to be in my name, so we are expecting the fruit from it, then it entangles. But if you give it in the name of Lord Krishna with the intent that you're giving it in that Isha Vashiya principle, then it does not bind us. So that's the crux of this Isha Upanishad Mantra 2. Now, I also mentioned the close connection with Canto 8, first chapter verses. So this is another beautiful verse where it is said, therefore, to enable people to reach the stage of activities that are not tinged by fruitive results, great saints first engage people in their fruitive activities. So don't get this wrong. It's not like, go do, material activity. That's not what they're saying. Do that in the move with karma yoga. It's a principle of karma yoga. For unless one begins by performing activities as recommended in the Shastra, that's karma yoga, not just karma yoga, one cannot reach the stage of liberation or activities that produce no reaction. So beautiful connection between the second verse and this 8.1.14 verse, which connects that together very nicely. So in that context, I would like to, reinitiate these two terms that most of you or all of you would be very familiar with: Pravriti Marga and Nivriti Marga. So it's very important for this particular verse that we are reading. So Pravriti Marga means involved life. Now I see how many of you are there in this. So probably 8 or 9 of us are there in this session. All of us are in this family life. We are all in this involved life, or grahastha ashram. I don't see any sannyasis or anybody there, right? So 99.99% of everybody in this world, I would say, compared to the total population, or 99%, are all grahasthas, right? So, and by the way, the teacher of Bhagavad-Gita is a grahastha, right? He's not only a grahastha, he's a mahagrahastha, because he's got 16,108 wives and so many children, etc. Right? And also the student is also a grahastha. Who's that? Arjuna is also a grahastha, mini mahagrahastha, and the compiler of all the scriptures is also a grahastha. Vyasadeva is also a grahastha, right? But this nivritti marga means it's withdrawn life, not involved life. Opposite of involved life is withdrawn life, right? Which is the sannyasi ashram. So apologies for the mistake, the spelling mistake of sannyasi there. One doesn't have, so if somebody is a totally dedicated person, they don't have family positions and family and positions and duties, etc. Right? So here the key is this Upanishad, this particular verse says that you have a choice of your lifestyle. You want to be a brahmachari and then sannyasi, leave everything, go to Himalayas and do the total detachment, and then you want to lead that life. That's fine. That's the choice of a lifestyle. But you don't have the choice of getting the spiritual knowledge. So spiritual knowledge is key for both the pravritti marg, that is for all of us grahasthas, as well as for sannyasi. The spiritual knowledge is the same. So without the spiritual knowledge, there is no way we can get liberation. That is not no entanglement and then getting liberation. So either lifestyle will give liberation if we are working in that spiritual knowledge, and either of this lifestyle will not grant us liberation if we are working in the absence of spiritual knowledge, right? So what really matters is the spiritual knowledge that we get from this particular verse and other scriptures as well. So that's what I want to bring the context. So spiritual knowledge is more important. It does not matter the lifestyle of either grahasthashram or sannyasi ashram, does not matter, but getting the spiritual knowledge and executing, internalizing that and executing more and more than what we did yesterday is what will produce the desired result. So in mantra 1 that you covered before, the final goal of spiritual knowledge, and that nivritti marga is explained, right? So you withdraw from everything, that is explained. But in this mantra, the other optional lifestyle, which is not optional for all of us, it's what we are in, is pravritti marg. And here also the pursuit of spiritual knowledge is important. So does not matter where we are. So we need to enhance our spiritual knowledge through scriptures, through Isha Upanishad mantras as well. Now, the caveat means it's warning, right? So the warning for each one of us, Ritesh Prabhu, Rajan Prabhu, or for all of us, we are all in this pravritti marg, which is involved life, right? So all of us have to remember the port, P-O-R-T. Remember, there is a port we can plug in, etc. Right? So we all have this. P stands for positions, O for obligatory duties, R for relationships, T for transactions. Transactions means we have interactions with so many families, friends, and work colleagues, and business partners. We buy, we pay, we sell. All these are transactions, right? So that's all part and parcel of grahastha life, which is a family life, which is involved life. So please remember this port, which is a reality. I just put that in this form of acronym. So the primary disadvantage of all of us is that this port will always bother us. If it's not position, if it's obligatory duty. If it's not obligatory duty, it could be relationship. If it's not relationship, it is transaction, right? So your mind is always preoccupied, and because of that, the pursuit of knowledge is really difficult. Prabhu, can you come for the Isha Upanishad class mantra? Sorry, I have this, my relative is coming, my neighbor is coming, right? That's because of this P-O-R-T. I need to go because of other things, right? I have a work-related call, etc. Right? So in spite of all that, so this mantra is saying, so in spite of all that, we have challenges, but in the second option of this pravritti marg, for you, there is no other way. For us, there is no other way that we may have this perceived disadvantage, but we need to pursue the knowledge and then execute based on the knowledge that we have learned, in spite of the position, obligatory duties, relationship, as well as transactions. Okay. So in this verse, it talks about kurvan evaha karmani. So karma refers to karma yoga, not karma yoga. And karma yoga also includes upasana yoga. Upasana yoga is nothing but what all of you do, spiritual practice, right? Worshipping, meditation, devotion, chanting, all that is part of the Upasana Yoga. It's not like, okay, Lord, I'm working for you, I'm lifting this for you. That's fine. But then that should be combined with this sadhana, the spiritual activities, the worship that we do, the actual actions that we do for the Lord as well. So both of them go together. So karma yoga means it also includes the devotional aspects that we do on a daily basis. That's why the whole of Bhagavad-Gita, even though it talks about bhakti yoga, it talks about karma yoga, jnana yoga, etc. But everything, this bhakti needs to be interlaced so that this upasana yoga is part of this karma. It's intertwined with whatever we do. So we have to practice this karma yoga and upasana yoga. So some of you or some of us may be getting older. I'm planning to retire. I'm planning to retire. That's fine. From your material work, you can retire, but you can't retire from this karma yoga and the upasana yoga, right? So that's something that we cannot, unfortunately, retire at all. So if you choose this pravriti mark, which we have all chosen, I can see from all of us who are in this session, if we choose this karma upasana yoga, because we are in the pravriti mark, we cannot avoid this karma upasana yoga if we don't want to get entangled in this material life, right? So mantra 2 tells us what our duty is, to act for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, and not act for ourselves, right? So if you meditate and think about him all the time, then our material activities also becomes spiritual. So it's not just restricted to 4 walls inside your altar or 4 walls within ISKCON Brampton or Toronto. So whatever we are doing, wherever we are doing, becomes karma yoga. So I have nothing. I have, I'm entirely dependent on the Supreme Personality of God. I may be a great employee in my work, and I'm the best in what I'm doing, but who gave me the opportunity? Anyone else would have gotten the opportunity like me. They would have done way better than me. That's how we should think, right? The intelligence that we may think that we have is also given by the Lord. We may think, oh, Krishna, you said 9.26, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam. I want to offer you the best. I'm giving you the best of orange. Yeah, did you make the orange? Did you manufacture the orange? No. The money that you got was because of the opportunity that Lord Krishna gave you to work somewhere. Our mind is not crazy. We were able to work somewhere and get the money and buy the thing. We are not blind to see and buy a bad fruit, etc. It's all totally dependent on the Lord, right? So it's not like when you go to a temple, okay, Krishna, I'm putting $20, okay, $20, and you're putting it into the donation box. How did we get $20, right? It's all because of the setup factor by Lord Krishna. Everything is done because of the Lord. So nothing belongs to us. So that's the Isha Vashiya principle that we need to lead our life in, especially when we are in this Grihastha ashram. That's what is mentioned in this particular verse. And if we do that, right, so we may be engaged in many material obligatory activities, right? So it may be neutral, it may not be spiritual, but even neutral. We may be taking bath, we may be driving the car. So if you appreciate Krishna, how many people can afford a car? How many people can see the road? They are blind, people are crazy, people cannot afford insurance. You've given me all this opportunity. Even neutral activities can be dovetailed into as karma yoga, right? So this beautiful verse 18.5, machitta sarva durgani mat prasada tarishyasi atachetvam amkarana shosti vinakshati. So here it says, if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of the conditioned life. So conditioned life is where we are, right? By my grace, Krishna says, not, he doesn't say by their grace, by my grace, right? And he doesn't say you will pass over some of the obstacles. Not all, but some. He doesn't say that. He says, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. Slam dunk, there's no question here. If, however, the opposite is also true, right? In a coin, you have heads and tails. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost, right? So beautiful verse. This is like the foundation of what this verse is explaining, this Isha Upanishad second verse. So we continue to do what we are doing, and then we think of Lord Krishna when we are doing, and dovetail as karma yoga, then we will be successful and we are not going to be entangled in this material. And that's the Isha Upanishad Mantra 2 that is given. Because the word karma is used twice in this particular verse, there are 3 types of action, as we know. Karma means actions prescribed by the scripture. There are many, many meanings of karma, right? So they'll say, he got his karma. I saw somebody sent a video clip, 5 people are there in front of a football goalpost, right? So the kicker is kicking the ball. The guy is standing in the third position out of 5 people. The ball curves and hit his face and he falls down, right? And then he says, then the kick is taken again. Then they said, okay, this person says, I'm not going to stand here. I'm going to stand in the corner. I don't want to get hit in my face. He goes there. Again, the ball curves the other way and hits him. It's not a cartoon. It's a real thing. Right? And then it hits him. Then last time he's saying, okay, my face is all about to be bleeding. I'm going to turn that side. Okay, I'm going to turn facing the goalpost so that if the ball hits me, let it hit in the back of my head. So I will not be, my face is not threatened anymore. And he faces the goalpost, and this person hits from here. He's facing that side, hits the bar of the goalpost, and again hits him on the face, right? So, if karma can get us, right? So karma, just because I do something bad, I have a beard. I grow a beautiful beard. I put a wig, lot of hair, look totally different person, and then quietly sit. You think karma will not get? It is said just like the calf, you unleash a calf, there are 100 cows. The calf will know which is the mother cow. All are black cows, black colored cows, brown, doesn't matter. This calf will know which is the mother and it will get, right? So, it's like I go to a different country, for example, right? And then I hide there. You think karma will not catch me because I'm in a different karma, in a basement? No. So karma can have many different context and the meaning, right? But scripturally, karma, it means it's as actions prescribed by the scriptures. Okay, and akarma means this is what we do, what Srila Prabhupada started, right? The spiritual activities, bhakti yoga, it's all akarma. That means actions that free us from the bondage. It doesn't mean it's inaction. It's not like I'm sitting like this. Oh, if I do something, it'll give me bad reaction or good reaction, so I'm not going to do it. That's not what akarma is. Akarma means it's action done, but it doesn't have any reaction, right? So it frees us from bondage of cycle of birth and death. And then vikarma are the prohibited actions. Okay, so that's what, according to the scriptures, it says do's and don'ts. Even Bhagavad-Gita says do's and don'ts, etc. Then if we do the don'ts, then we'll be doing the vikarma and we'll be in trouble. And that's what causes karma bandhana. Bandha means knot, right? So karma bandhana means bondage by material work, and then we'll be transmigrating again and again. And karma yoga is liberation by material work. That is action in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so it's important. Just like our mind, it's like your iPad, right? iPad also, you can do a lot of bad things with the iPad, right? Like with the internet being there, you can find out how to make a bomb, etc. But at the same time, with the internet, you can have the whole of Veda base, whole of Rig Veda, everything there as well, right? So it can be used both ways, right? So a knife can be used both ways as well, right? So knife can be used to kill somebody. Knife can be used by the best of doctors to cut a cancerous growth as well, right? So it goes both ways. So similarly, mind also can liberate us or can, bury us deeper into this birth and death as well. Similarly, karma can also bind us and liberate us, right? The actions that we do, right? So it's a double-edged sword, as they say. It can cut us or save us, right? So when we base our actions on Lord Krishna in this Isha Vashiya principle, then it liberates us. And we dedicate our actions to Lord Krishna, not depending on the fruit. But actions unassociated with the Lord, but individually, then it will bind us, right? So that's the difference. So karma can bind us, these actions, what we do. So if you follow the actions of what is prescribed in the scriptures, that will be liberating. That's what Isopanishad Mantra 2 says. But the opposite also is true. If we do it individually, selfishly, and doing things for our own fruits, then it will bind us. Okay. So with that said, Bhagavad-Gita, I just took some prominent verses which talks about karma yoga, because it's a bona fide way and all of us are grihasthas. So this will be important for us to read all this together. So we'll take the next 10 minutes or so, if we can take turns to read different verses. Again, it's in English, so all of you can read this taking turns. It's purifying. It'll be purifying all of you, and it'll reverberate in our mind as to what this mantra 2 is telling us, which is karma yoga, the Isha Vashiya principle, not expecting the fruits of the actions that we are doing as grihasthas in this life. So if you can get different devotees, again, we'll read it really quickly, one by one. If you can read starting from Bhagavad-Gita 2.47. So here again, to reiterate, this is connected with Isopanishad Mantra 2. We're talking about Karma Yoga, liberation by material work, that is action in Krishna consciousness. Okay, let's go.
Bhagavad Gita 2.47. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty.
Bhagavad Gita 2.48. Perform your duty, equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga.
So if you can just pause for a minute, right? So 2.47. So again, we're all in this material world. We will have to perform various duty. You have to drive your kids to school, colleges, you have to cook, you have to buy grocery. So that's all your prescribed duty, right? Prescribed duty for each one is different. So Krishna is saying you have the right to perform your prescribed duty, but you're not entitled to the fruits of the action. So I need the name and fame because I did that, right? So you do your duty to the best of your ability, but it's not like you do it for free. That's not what Krishna is saying. Yeah, work in a company for free. That's not what he's saying. As don't expect the fruits, right? So it's like how to get name or fame, right? That extraction of it, and thank Krishna, my dear Krishna, I got this, promotion from work. It's because of you. That's what is the meaning. Anybody from for 2.49?
O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers.
250. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work.
Thank you. Again, art of all work, even the material work that we do, it's karma yoga if we dovetail in God consciousness. So 3.30. Okay, I'll read it. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me. That means you're working, you're doing many things. So surrender all works unto Lord Krishna with full knowledge of Lord Krishna and his teachings, without desires for profit, with no claims of proprietorship, and free from lethargy. Fight. That means continue to do your job, right? So not lethargic, oh my God, I have to go to work, I have to do this. No, free from lethargy and continue to do your job. So clearly it indicates, the Lord become Krishna conscious and discharge your duty. Okay, let's continue. 4.20.
Bhagavad Gita 4.20. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertaking.
That means that you're not getting entrapped in this material world, even though you're doing material activity, because you are doing it for the Lord. You're being grateful for what you're doing and you're offering it to the Lord as well. Beautiful verse, right? 9.27. Yat karoshi yadashnasi, yat juhoshi dadasi, yat tapassasi kauteya, tat kurushva madarpan. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, Krishna says, go on, whatever you do, whatever this, offer it to me, right? So that's what is the meaning. So 4.21.
Is anyone available? Mahalakshmi, Nana, Sunana Mataji?
I can read 4.21. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, give up all senses of proprietorship over his possessions, and act only for the bare necessity of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions.
Beautiful. Thus working in the material world is not affected by sinful reactions because he's protected, right? So here gives up the sense of proprietorship over his possessions and acts only as the bare necessity. So it's not mine. I have this house, which is, I may have 10 houses. You may have 10 houses. It's like, I want it. No, it's like you're just a caretaker, right? So in due course of time, we are gone. That paid off house will still belong to someone else, right? So what's the point of this proprietorship? You're just a temporary custodian of everything, family, friends, and possessions that we have. So that's the understanding. So 4.22.
He who is satisfied with gain, which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled although performing actions.
This is a very important verse for all of us, right? Grahasthas. So who steady in both success and failure, right? So life is always, how do you ride the waves of life, right? That's all life is all about, right? The teachings are all that, right? Don't go to the upper control, beyond the upper control limit. Don't go beneath the lower control limit. Stay in the median, because life is not just this. Life is not just this. It'll keep going up and down. So how do you ride the waves of life? And we know this too shall pass. This is from Bible, right? This too shall pass, right? So even here, you may be elated about your promotion that you got at work, because we talk about karma yoga here. But don't worry, because that's not your final destination. It'll give you a temporary happiness, but it's a journey, right? Like, yeah, I became a vice president, but hey, there is someone else who's a senior vice president. I'm going to, after 1 year, this vice president job that you got may not be, yeah, so what? I got it before, right? You may be trying for it for so many years, but once you achieve that, that becomes not a destination, but an ongoing journey, right? So life will be success. Sometimes you may not get the job that you're looking for. So life is both success and failure, but none of them are permanent. So how do you ride the waves of life? So that's the important thing. So 4.37. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activity. So you remember we were talking about 3-4 slides before. It does not matter whether you're taking the sannyas ashram or grahastha ashram, and we don't have a choice. We already took one. And in this grahastha ashram, the family life that we have, you can take either one of that, but you don't have a choice of not acquiring the spiritual knowledge. That's what it says. So if you acquire the spiritual knowledge, you understand from Isha Upanishad, you understand from Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, that knowledge itself, that fire will burn the reactions, to ashes, all reactions to material activities. 4.41.
One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work, O conqueror of riches.
You see, these verses are not just randomly selected, right? These are like funneled beautifully as part of this mantra too that we're talking about, right? So discussing today, which is the karma yoga. See, in this verse, it says, one who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, right? So again, we are in this karma yoga, we work, you do all these things, you renounce the action, offer it to Lord Krishna, then you're not bound by the reactions of the work. And that's the crux of this mantra too. Okay, so there are many, many more mantras. So maybe we'll quickly read this. 5.2 personality of God, it said, the renunciation of work. Again, we're all working as grahasthas, and work in devotion are both good for liberation, right? So that's why we are connecting both of them together, karma yoga as well as the worship that we do, right? But devotional service is better than renunciation of work, not doing the work at all, right? Of course, that's not good. You do the work and offer the results to Lord Krishna. 5.10, one who performs his duty without attachment. Again and again, right? These are significant verses which are almost the same meaning, but reiterated again and again in different chapters of Bhagavad-Gita. Why? In that 45 minutes or 1 hour that Lord Krishna spoke, it's in the middle of this battlefield. Just imagine how many times he's repeating almost the same thing, almost from here, so that we get that in our head, right? Like, so that we are able to execute it, right? You could have very well said, one of these verses and that means everything, right? But he's referring to it again and again in different chapters, but you can see it's almost the same. Renounce the fruits of your action, etc. So here, if you perform your duty without attachment, surrender the result to the Supreme Lord, you are unaffected by sinful reaction. Just like a lotus leaf, when you have water, it's unaffected, or the lotus leaf is on the water, but still the water doesn't stick to it, right? So again and again, Krishna is teaching us similar teaching so that we are able to get it, right? 5.12, steadily devoted souls attain unadulterated peace because he offers the results of activities to me. I did this. Thank you, Krishna, because of your blessing, I was able to do it, and I'm offering the fruits of that action to you, right? So beautiful, beautiful verses. So more here, but one thing which we want to know is 6.30, right? Yoma pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sachamena pranashyati. For one who sees me everywhere. Okay, Krishna says he's sunlight. Krishna says he's moonlight. Krishna says he's the juice of juice within the fruit, and fruits grow because of the moonlight. He's the fire of digestion in the body. Vidya Vinay Sampane, look everybody equally, whether he's a great person, not so great person, etc. So when we are able to see Krishna everywhere, he's the super soul in all the entities, not just human beings, but animals, etc. And he sees everything in me, the whole 11th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, Virat Rupa, right? Everything was in. So you see Krishna everywhere as a super soul in every living entity, in the air, in the sun, everywhere, earth, etc. And then you see everything within Lord Krishna. Mother Yasoda saw the Virat Rupa how many times? It's a quiz question for all of you. Very good. I think, twice, back to back in the 10th canto, right? One when, of course, we know when he was eating the mud, and then they blamed him. Krishna ate the mud, and then he was forced to open his mouth, and then the whole universe was there. But before that, when he drank the milk and then he yawned, and then Mother Yasoda saw the whole. So seeing everything within him, right? So that's the verse. And then we talked about this Yat Karo Shedasya. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give in, whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to him. That's karma yoga, right? So 9.26 and 9.27. What is 9.26? 9.26 says Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yomya Bhaktya Prayashyati, right? So it says, leaf, water, flower, or fruit, offer it to me, right? So think of me and then offer it. In this particular verse, 9.27, it says, whatever you do, even though you didn't think of me when you're doing it, after you do it, offer it to me, right? So I give this example when you're going to go to the bed, right? So you can either take the blanket when you're standing, put it on you and hit the bed, or you lie down on the bed and take the blanket and put it, both are same, right? So 9.26 and 9.27, 9.26, please think of me with devotion, offer all that. But Krishna says, even if you didn't think of me before you did, you do the thing and then offer it to me. 9.27, as you can see, right? So everybody follows the difference, 9.26 and 9.27. There are more examples, right? I'm not going to go through more, just for your reference. 18.5 to 18.9 again talks about karma yoga, right? So altruistic activities are executed in the spirit of Isha Upanishad. They become karma yoga, right? So sacrifice, charity, penance, and everything, right? So don't have any attachment. Don't expect anything in return. Hey, I'm giving $10. Somewhere I read I'll get 10 times the money. When I'm going to wait for it, it's 2 days, 3. No, we don't expect anything, right? So you do it as a performance of your duty, right? As a matter of duty. So more verses that talks about karma yoga, which is directly what this mantra 2 talks about, okay? So this is the summary. So again, just to recap, right? So the translation is one may aspire to live for 100 years, hundreds of years, if he continuously goes on working in that way, for that sort of work. So in that way means, what did we say? Which is verse number 1, right? Will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man. So the summary is, defocus the world or from the world and focus on Lord Krishna. Is the karana of everything. And when we perform actions clinging blindly to our lower desires, then we are going to be bound up in this birth and death constantly. However, if the same actions are performed with full surrender to the Lord in this Isha Vashiya principle that is described in verse number 1, then it purifies us and it liberates us and it unentangles us, right? So there is no harm in, even if we are being materially good, but if they are connected with Lord Krishna, as it says in the purport. So just to reiterate, we are all in this pravriti mark. We are in this involved life, family life, grihastha ashram. And we already talked about teacher of Bhagavad-Gita is a Mahagrahastha. Student of Bhagavad-Gita, Arjuna is a Grahastha, mini Mahagrahastha. Compiler Vyasadev is also a Grahastha, right? But we as family, we in the family life, watch out for possessions, obligatory duties, relationship, transaction. In spite of all of that, we need to remember Krishna all the time in doing our material activities, either following the scriptures or even neutral, right? Driving the car, thank you, God. Because of you, I have eyesight, I have insurance to pay, I was afford to drive the car, I'm able to see the world, thank you very much, etc., etc. Right? Whatever neutral activities also can be turned into karma yoga. That's what it says. So karma bandhana means actions that are selfish, we are expecting fruits, etc. Karma yoga means actions in Krishna consciousness that liberate us. So because we have to watch out, karma can both bind us and liberate us, right? So if you are in God consciousness and do the activities, then it liberates us. But selfish activities, it becomes karma bandhana. So that's a little summary of that particular verse that we talked about. Any questions before we get on to the quiz? We have a quiz, so which we will answer together. Don't worry. It's just a nice recap of, as I said, repetition causes retention. So we'll recap what we heard in the last 1 hour and 15 minutes, so that we are able to absorb it further. So any thoughts, comments, questions on this mantra 2 of Isha Upanishad?
Thank you, Prabhuji, for clearing the concept of karma yoga, because of course from reading from different teachers it's come differently, but it's very, now, when you put 2 and 2 together, it's like basically doing Krishna conscious activities.
Yeah.
In that.
It's
So
not just
that.
it's not just chanting. Is something that will liberate us, because the way that the earth is set up and all of us are, family, man and women, we have our obligation, we have to do our day-to-day duties. If we connect it to Lord Krishna, thinking of Lord Krishna, appreciating everything that we are succeeding in or we are able to do it is because of him. That's like dovetailing. That is karma yoga. So differences, as we heard, it can be a double-edged sword, right? So if you're just selfish and do the same action, it's going to take us in one direction. And then, but if you're not selfish, we are doing the action, but giving the credit to Lord Krishna, giving the fruit to Lord Krishna, appreciating Lord Krishna, I'm able to do this because of you. That's the life that we need to live, and that will not entangle us, will liberate us. So that's the clear description of this mantra 2. And as we heard, this is also repeated in a way in 8.1.14, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then Krishna teaches, it's not just so Isha Upanishad may be little esoteric, and the terminologies and translations may not be the best that we are used to. And therefore, Krishna is explaining with so many beautiful verses that all of you read in Bhagavad-Gita, spread across so many chapters, how we can lead a normal life that you're already leading as a doctor. It doesn't say that, but you do your duty, like whatever your duty is even as a housewife, etc. But somehow connected to Lord Krishna, and then we are not going to get embroiled or connected into this material world. We will move along to the quiz questions, if that's okay. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. So the first question, which of the following statements are true? Shruti means revealed truth, and the examples of Shruti are Vedas, Upanishads, etc. Smriti means realized truth, and examples are Mahabharata, Ramayana, Puranas. So which of the 2 statements is true? Either one is true, or both are true, or both are false. Anybody?
Taking my chance, both are true.
Very good. You didn't have to take a chance. You are absolutely right. So yeah, both are true. So I'm circling both of them. Yeah, Shruti means is revealed truth. As we heard, revealed from whom? Lord Krishna to Lord Brahma, the first, right? And then it was, of course, divided into 4 by Vyasadeva, and then there were subject matter experts for each one of them, etc. But Shruti means revealed truth. It was revealed. But Smriti means realized truth, and that's Mahabharata, Ramayana, and Puranas. Very good. Second, Sri Isha Upanishad is part of Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, and Atharva Veda. Yajurveda. Very good. Very good. Third question, Sri Isha Upanishad advises us to exert our energy in Deva Vashiya, Shiva Vasya, Brahma Vasya, Isha Vasya.
Isavasi.
Isha Vasya. And the Supreme Personality of God, not on the Devas, not on anyone else, Brahma or anyone, but Isha Vasya. Everybody's okay so far?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Prabhupada.
Just a nice, reiteration of what we covered. Right? It's a good summary. Okay, the Vedas were A, originally revealed by Vyasadev to Narada. B, originally revealed by Lord Krishna to Lord Brahma.
B.
I just mentioned that. We just mentioned that. Yeah, originally revealed by Lord Krishna to Lord Brahma. So it's a bonus question. How do we know that? Where do we read that? We just covered that as well. Is it in Bhagavad-Gita? Is it in Srimad Bhagavatam? It says 4b. Where does it say? Where do we get the evidence of 4b?
It's in Bhagavatam.
Srimad Bhagavatam, very good. Which verse out of the 12 cantos? Which canto?
I think it's the second or the first.
Eight canto.
First,
Very first canto, very first chapter,
second.
very first verse.
The first or the second, yeah.
Yeah, very 111. That's where it says that Vedas were revealed by Lord Krishna to Lord Brahma first. Okay, Upanishads are, so which of the following is true? Okay, is it A, B, C, or D? Is it A plus B plus C are true and D is false? So Upanishads are head of the Vedas, referred to as head of the Vedas, are the conclusion of the Vedas, are the Jnana Kanda portion of the Vedas, D, Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas. It's a little tough question. Say again?
B. Conclusion of Vedas.
So which is true? More than one is true, all are false. So you can tell me A is true, B, only A is true, or A, B is true, A, B, C is true, all not true, some are. So I want that type of answer.
I think it's C.
C is true, but is that the only true statement there?
But I feel the B could be it. B and C.
B is right.
B is also right, and A is also right.
A is also right.
Yeah. So that I covered in one of the earlier slides. So you may have thought there is not going to be any quiz. Why would I need to remember this? And why would there be a quiz question on Upanishad in general when we are covering mantra too? No, we'll cover everything. So Upanishads are head of the Vedas, are conclusion of the Vedas, are the Jnana Kanda portion because it's knowledge, right? We talked about knowledge of the Veda. Karma Kanda is the sacrifice portion of the Veda. So that's not. So Upanishad, Karma Kanda part of it is, Upanishad is not part of the Karma Kanda, but Jnana Kanda portion. Okay. So the first three are right. A, B, and C are right. Okay. Simple question. The total number of mantras in Isha Upanishads is around how many? Is it 12? Is it 18? Is it 3 or 108? Remember 108. So which is true?
B.
18.
18. Yeah. You know, for us 108 is the favorite. So we'll try to answer everything at 108. No, in this case it's 18. Okay, good. Question number 6. Dash chanted Isha Upanishad and was saved from the Rakshasas. A, Vaivasvata Manu. B, Arjuna. C, Maharaj Parikshit, and D, Swayambhuva Manu.
D.
Yeah, good. I just thought of introducing Maharaj Parikshit. We didn't talk about him. Why not, right? But yeah, that's right. Swayambhuva Manu. Okay. I think I have one more slide of questions. 3 more questions only. Okay. Which is true? Pravriti Marga means involved life. That is family life, which is also called as Grahastha Ashram. B, Nivritti Marga means withdrawn life. Sannyasa Ashram. Which is true. Both are right. Very good. Yeah, I didn't want to confuse you because I want everybody to remember Pravriti Marga means where we are all, right? So we'll ask this question even if we meet after a few months, even though we talk about some other chapter, I'm going to bring this question out of the blue and ask Pravriti Marga and Nivritti Marga. Okay. So remember that. Which is true. Karma Bandhana means bondage by material work. It causes transmigration of soul. Karma Yoga means liberation by material work. That is action in Krishna consciousness, which is true. Or both are true or both?
Both true.
Both are true. Okay. Very good. So again, it's something that we want to reiterate and for you to remember. Okay. I think this is the last question. Match the following. Okay. I would like anybody to answer this. Which one? Karma means out of the 3 actions on the right-hand side, which one is karma?
Karma means action prescribed by scriptures.
Anybody doesn't agree? Everybody agrees? When you're quiet, I'm not sure whether you're
Agree,
sure.
agree, Prabhuji,
Right,
agree.
Very good. Okay, akarma.
Akarma is action that free one from bondage or cycle birth and death.
Everybody agrees?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. Question was leaked, Prabhuji, I think.
Yeah. Can I answer the third one, which is the difficult one? Yeah, and vikarma is prohibited actions, right? So what is not in the scriptures, and even what our grandmothers and grandfathers used to tell, right? Don't lie, don't steal. But where are they getting all the knowledge? From the scriptures, right? So it's all from the scriptures. So that's the third one. Is Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So hopefully, if there are any questions, we can still take. Are there any questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions, anything that your doubts were cleared, anything that you liked from what you saw? It's again nothing. I'm just putting this together, but anything that revealed certain things to you and clarified, other than I think one of the mothers mentioned about what karma yoga is clear. Anything to share with others based on what we covered?
Prabhuji, first, I would like to thank you for capturing and refreshing all those that we covered in our earlier class, because we had no class for 3-4 weeks because of every weekend we had the Rath Yatra, so we canceled it. And I was thinking just directly going into mantra 2, it may be little disconnected for some of us, but thankfully, and I know that you always do so I was praying, okay, Prabhuji is going to do it, so that will be very helpful. So thank you so much, Prabhuji, for covering everything.
Thank you.
One thing I have to ask, Prabhuji, I heard many times when a devotee come and start practicing, and maybe 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, I would say. And then I heard a comment like that, I know all these things, why to hear again? So I understand the common pastimes, in every festival we hear every year and everything. But it's still personally, I think, right? When we hear it again, we how today, it's not the first time we are reading Isopanishad, but when you started quoting and giving reference from here and there, and it's like a big ocean. It's never going to end, and we are going to learn everything. It's like life is a learning process. So how to motivate those devotees, Prabhuji?
Yeah, so it's a good point that you mentioned, right? So as I was saying, repetition causes retention, right? There are certain things that need to be really, really enforced in our mind. It doesn't come when you hear it once, right? So that's why it's always fresh, right? Even in Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that, the teachings of the pastimes of Krishna are ever so fresh, right? It's not like stale, Every time we hear about Narasimha Dev's pastime, Narasimha Chaturdasi, we hear that it's always refreshing, right? All of us know the pastimes. Even the pastimes are so refreshing because there's so many ins and outs and angles. Different speakers bring in so much into that, and then it refreshes our mind. A new perspective comes into play because of that, right? What to speak of teachings, right? How can we remember all those pastimes? As you said, it's much better chance of us remembering the past. Maybe we'll remember the pastime, the outline of it, right? Yeah, Narasimha Dev, yeah, Prahlad Maharaj, Hiranyakashipu. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that much, right? But then there is so much of intricacy. Do we all remember that Narasimha Dev said, you, Prahlad Maharaj, need to do the Shraddh for your father? We all know when Lord Krishna sort of kills somebody, or somebody, let's say kill, I'm going to use the word, right? Shishupal is killed. Everybody who was killed by Lord Krishna in the pastime that we read, they get liberated. But Lord Krishna and Narsimhadev teaches. How many of us remember that, right? So those are the things that comes through when you read those scriptures and repeatedly, and then you connect that with you, right? Why would Lord Krishna, Narsimhadev say that when he's already got liberated? So that's a teaching for us. We can't say, well, I'm going to the temple, that's good enough. These are like, we know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did the Shraddh ceremony for his father in Gaya, right? So those are the things when we not only read one, but multiple other pastimes and connect everything together, right? So then we get to know. So repetition causes retention, and we just also read so many verses on karma yoga. Remember, Lord Krishna could have said, you know what, we're in the midst of just imagine, it's like this conversation between Arjuna and Krishna. It's almost like a match. World Cup finals is going to start, right? Two teams, India and Pakistan, are playing. Like two teams are against each other. Match is going on. Thousands of spectators are waiting, and here two people from the same team. Sachin Tendulkar, for example, right? I know he's retired, but Sachin Tendulkar and Virat Kohli are in the middle of the pitch talking for 45 minutes. There's no match, right? So just imagine, in such a critical moment, this teaching is given, and there is so much of, I won't say repetition, but similarity in the teachings. Why would Krishna do that? That once if he says, yeah, you work, but don't expect the results, that's enough, right? How many verses that we read, we put that together and all of you read? How many? At least 25 verses we read from various chapters of Bhagavad-Gita. So Lord Krishna himself wants us to remember the teachings in many different angles, so that it gets registered, because we can't remember. How many of you remember what colored dress that you wore yesterday? Maybe that's not important, but this is important, okay? But to emphasize the fact that how many of you remember what colored dress you wore yesterday, what time you woke up yesterday? Our memory is very short, right? So in important aspects, our memory needs to be strengthened, and only when we hear again and again, only when we read again and again, we will benefit. So the person may say that because he doesn't know the value of this, and he's not deep into this. Right? Once devotees get entrenched, they've been in Krishna consciousness, God consciousness, forever, for a long time, then they know the most important aspect is repetition causes retention. But this is not exact repetition, because every speaker, every purport, when you read different books that enhance the knowledge of Isha Upanishad, right? So there are many contemporary authors also have provided in addition. So it's not like replacement to the book that we already have, but in addition to that, just as a understanding the bigger picture, and then go to Prabhupada's book, so that we get the bigger picture through Prabhupada's books, right? So again, in summary, in life we will only learn by repeating many things, right? So only when we make a mistake we learn, we don't repeat it again. But in important spiritual aspects, when we hear it again and again and again, then it becomes second nature to us, because when we keep hearing, we can preach to others. But the message of Bhagavad-Gita and the scripture is how you internalize that and you perform the activities based on the teaching, right? It's not like, yeah, I know this verse, I memorized this Patram Pushpam Palam. Okay, great, Prabhu, you know this verse, fantastic. It's also in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.81. Great, fantastic. That's a fantastic way that you've learned this Patram Pushpam verse. Prabhu, do you offer daily bhoga to Krishna? No, I don't have time. Then what is the point, right? The whole teaching is for us to internalize and execute it, right? Not to know the meaning of it or memorize it like a parrot, right? Or to preach to others, right? Prabhu, you should treat everybody, Vidya Vinay Sampane, everybody equally, right? But then if we don't do that, right? So the whole idea is we will be able to internalize it and execute it more when we read about it. When it says Krishna is saying, I'm the sun, I'm the moon, I'm the, everything, every time, how many times can you think of Krishna? Maybe, normal time, other than chanting in the temple, when we are doing day-to-day activity, every maybe 20 minutes, we can think of Krishna. Oh, Krishna, thank you for giving me this. When I see someone else who doesn't have, thank you so much. But the 20 minutes need to be pulled ahead when we keep hearing about Krishna, more and more repetition. Once every 20 minutes of thinking about Krishna will become once every 18 minutes. Once every 18 minutes, more classes, that will become once every 15 minutes, because our mind goes somewhere. So every time we catch our mind faster and bring it to thinking about Lord Krishna, even that spontaneously for that short period of time, more frequently, then we are in this Isha Vashiya principle, which is part of this, which is the teaching of Mantra 1 for all of us as Grihastha ashram members, in ISKCON. So hopefully it's a long-winded answer. So, but hopefully that sort of reiterates the reason why we all have to go to classes. Why do we have books at home to read it? Every night we read in front of Krishna, because Krishna likes to hear his own teachings, his own pastimes, right? So you've seen devotees read Krishna book, read Bhagavad-Gita verses in front of their altar as well, right? So Krishna himself likes the repetition. And that's why he's repeated this Bhagavad Gita over 18,000 times so far from the dawn of creation. And he's repeated it to, every time he comes, he says that to Vivaswan, the sun god, as we read from 4.1, right? He repeats it, not 4.1, is it 7.1, 6.1? Sorry, I'm lost in time. But you remember he says, I taught this to Vivaswan and then it got lost and I'm teaching it to you. Remember that verse?
Yeah.
It's
So
the
Krishna-
first
fourth
verse
chapter,
of fourth
Prabhuji.
chapter.
Fourth, is it 4.1? Okay.
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji.
So I was right. So in that case, so Krishna himself repeats it because he knows that it has to be repeated. Yeah, it got lost, right? Even Vivaswan, the sun god, remembers. Sun god doesn't remember to rise and set every day. Do you know if sun god ever forgot to rise and set? He's not a person who forgets. But Krishna says, I taught him the contents of Bhagavad Gita, and somehow the knowledge got drifted away, and I'm teaching it to you again. And Arjuna, every time, one day of Lord Brahma, Krishna comes and teaches the contents of Bhagavad Gita again and again and again. When you see Lord Brahma is 155 trillion years old, right? And then when you do that, you do the math and everything else, it comes to, how many times Krishna, one day, you calculate one day multiplied by 100 years of Lord Brahma. I did that calculation. So about 18,000 plus times just to Arjuna. Okay, every time this repeats. And then, of course, to Vivaswan. So over 36,000 times the contents of Bhagavad Gita has been said so far from the dawn of creation. And within the Bhagavad Gita, as we saw, from here, Krishna is talking about Karma Yoga, here Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, spiritual. So he's giving that full picture to us in many different ways, but in almost every. And we also heard in 11.16, Krishna repeats what he repeated to Arjuna, to Uddhava in the 11.16, what he repeated in Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because we are just following in the footsteps, because we are not good in remembering things. So we need to not just remember, but more importantly, knock it inside and internalize it and practically demonstrate it and live by the principles of the scriptures. So that's what Srila Prabhupada wants. And that's why you have daily Srimad Bhagavatam class, right? So in established temples, every day morning. Why? Because we need to rehear it again and again and again.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I mean, it was a really wow answer. I would say a couple of things that it goes directly into my brain, that if we hear more or read more, it's a chances that we are going to remember Krishna more often, because it's very hard to remember him. So that's one thing that goes like, no, I mean, this is really, we have to try to hear more and more and read more and more. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for your wonderful answer. Does anyone else has any question?
I just wanted to thank Prabhuji for taking all the effort and then clarifying from starting and setting us a strong base, so that when we go to the next shloka, we already have, at least I won't feel lost. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
No problem. And also, hopefully, all of you got some, better idea of, as I said, we look at the forest before we go into the tree, and before we look at the fruit number 2 from this, right? So when you look at how the Vedas are there, the Shruti and the Smriti, and then where this Isha Upanishad fits into within the Vedas, within the Yajurveda, and then what is an Upanishad, etc. So it'll be good if we flow it from top down. And then one thing you can remember is this mantra 1 that you already covered, which we repeated today, and mantra 2, what we covered today, which is Karma Yoga in God consciousness, Isha Vashiya principle that is described in 1. The rest of the 16 mantras are sort of expansion or explanation of these first two mantras. That's what our acharyas explain. So it'll be, if you remember these two verses, then the rest of them will fit in very nicely, as you said. So I'd like to thank again each one of you for giving us your valuable time. We as Grahastha will always have something more important, but you've given us your valuable 1 hour and 45 minutes, I would say, on a busy Friday evening. So I mean, this online classes is always a blessing in disguise. No driving, nothing, so it's always good. So I thank you for continuing with these online sessions, and also thank you for engaging me, because this is absolutely for my own purification that I like to go deeper and deeper and try to mine all these gems. So thank you so much. Until next time, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanande. Hare Hare.
Hare
Thank you.